Discover the incredible heroism, employee saves millionaire in unexpected heart attack dilemma. Michael raced through the glossy hallways of their midtown firm, breath quickening with each step, feeling the weight of his father's frail condition tugging at his mind. How had he ended up here, surrounded by the ruthless clamor of the legal elite, trapped between the dreams he held for himself and the duty he had towards his father? Each day, he shuffled papers and brewed coffee, longing for the moment he would secure his place among the lawyers, yet shackled by the chains of economic inequality. The vibrant city around him pulsed with opportunities, yet he felt invisible, an underdog in a realm that thrived on power. Today was different, though. Today brought promise of a high-stakes meeting with a potential client that could catapult the firm into a new echelon of influence. Michael's heart felt heavy with anticipation. This could be the turning point he needed. Yet as he shuffled documents, fragile reminders of his ambitions, his thoughts wandered. What if he didn't belong here? What if waiting tables was all he was truly cut out for? The room exploded into chaos as Michael, clenching a stack of files, heard a gasp echoed around him. Mr. Ashford, the wealthy partner with a reputation for arrogance, staggered, his face an eerie shade of gray. A harsh silence reigned, like the oppressive weight of fear had collapsed upon them. Yet, paradoxically, all Michael could think of was the images of his father, the late-night calls, the fatigue etched across his features, the doctors muttering weak assurances. Michael had been through this before, his father's health declining. Instinct kicked in. He remembered the CPR classes he took, not only as a practical skill for emergencies but as a bulwark against the inevitable. "Somebody call 911, a voice shrieked, but Michael was already on the ground, hands smoothing across Ashford's chest, his mind racing between the urgency of saving a man and the ambition that lingered deep within him. His doubt clawed at his insides, grappling with the fear that all he would ever be was a paralegal, the overlooked cog in a machine that didn't even know his name. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each compression, he felt the weight of both his father and Ashford's legacy pressing hard against his chest. "Stay with me," he whispered, fervent desperation flooding his voice. The buzz of astonishment wrapped around him, piercing his focus. Michael could hear the murmurs, he could feel their eyes on him. This was his moment, yet in the back of his mind, nagging questions clawed at him. Would saving Ashford propel him into the upper echelons of respect, or would it be another reminder of how others would never see him as more than an underdog? Time slipped away, and as the sirens wailed in the distance, the anticipation of what lay ahead surged bitterly within him. A strange connection formed in his mind as he recalled his father's teachings about integrity. Was success worth the risk of losing sight of who he was beneath the accolades? For the first time, he caught a glimpse of Ashford's expression, no longer the arrogant mogul but a man vulnerable in need. And just like that, in the confines of chaos, Michael felt torn. Would he choose ambition or honor? As he rested a hand beside Ashford's heart, the question surfaced ominously: what path will shape him now? The air thickened, leaving his fate hanging precariously in the balance, waiting for the storm to break. The clarity of the moment sliced through the confusion, revealing stark choices to Michael as he stood suspended between duty and desire. The sirens grew closer, but time felt elastic. Each compression brought an avalanche of thoughts racing through his mind. Will they remember me as Michael the paralegal, or Michael the hero? With the next thrust of his hands against Ashford's chest, he felt a surge of adrenaline mingled with a growing clarity. This wasn't just about the accolades or the respect that might follow. It was about affirming who he was at his core. As he pressed down yet again, he thought of his father, his quiet strength, his unwavering tenacity. "You taught me to stand for something greater," Michael murmured, feeling the weight of both his father's lessons and Ashford's potential legacy. The murmurs around him faded into a dull hum. Drivers screeched to a halt outside as the ambulance pulled up. Yet, beyond the immediate chaos, Michael's mind raced to the implications of what he was doing. If Ashford survived, if he came through this trembling moment, would he finally see Michael's potential beyond being just another figure lost among the ranks? "Don't give up, Ashford," he urged, his voice louder, as if he needed both of them to be alive to confront what lay beyond this pivotal moment, the chance at upwards mobility, the chase of dreams amid professional desperation. It was no longer merely about survival for the man below him, it was about seizing an opportunity to reshape his own narrative. The paramedics burst through the door, and Michael observed them, absorbing their expertise. There was power in decisive movements, in the way authority could command respect. One of the medics slid into place, gesturing for Michael to take a step back. Their confidence ignited an unexpected spark within him. This was his chance to learn, to adapt, to evolve. As Ashford was lifted onto a stretcher, Michael's heart sank, tethered to uncertainty. Could this act of courage translate into a step up the ladder? Or would he find himself still at the bottom, where ambition mixed with insignificance? Questions swirled around him like the noise of the office. What if he could leverage this moment, this narrative of heroism? This wouldn't just be about saving Ashford, it would be about redefining his destiny. "Hey!" Ashford's eyes fluttered open as the gurney rolled past. Michael locked onto that gaze, a flicker of hope blazing in Ashford's flickering spirit. "Thank you, just doing what's right," Michael replied, heart racing. But even as he spoke, doubts twisted in his stomach. Was righteousness enough to elevate him in the eyes of Ashford or the firm? Did he even want that? As the doors closed behind the paramedics, a definitive weight settled on his shoulders. He was no longer merely a paralegal but a man faced with the complexities of moral choices and ambition. Returning to the office, Michael felt his surroundings shift. They were suffocating and exhilarating all at once. The whispers of his colleagues mingled with quickening thoughts of meetings and potential retribution or recognition. This was only the tipping point. The inkling of ambition roiling within him began to transform, entwining with something deeper. What would happen next? The whispers of opportunity beckoned like sirens as he strived to grasp what it meant to be seen in a world of giants. Now, he couldn't shake the feeling that the world was watching, waiting to see if he would slip back into obscurity or rise to claim his identity. But the question remained, was he prepared to face the consequences of his next decision? The tension lodged tightly in his chest, promising a daunting threshold to cross. The moment Michael stepped back into the office, the atmosphere felt charged with an unsettling energy. The familiar buzz of fluorescent lights overhead seemed louder, almost mocking. Colleagues who had previously walked past him without a glance now paused, their eyes flitting toward him. What had shifted? The walls that enveloped him, once mundane and suffocating, now loomed as if they were witnesses to his unfolding narrative. "Did you hear about Ashford?" someone hissed, barely concealing the thrill in their voice. Michael's pulse quickened at the mention. Whispers, eager and speculative, whispered through the corridors, wrapping around him like spidery tendrils. How long until the news reached the upper echelons? He could almost hear the gears of ambition grinding in the back of their minds, each colleague envisioning how they could parlay this incident into personal gain. Did they see him as part of that narrative, or would he be just another name in the backdrop of someone else's tale of bravery? From his desk, he watched his supervisor, Karen, flap her hands as she explained the situation to a group huddled around the coffee machine. Michael leaned in closer, fueled by curiosity but also by an urgent need to reclaim agency over his own fate. "A paralegal saved a millionaire," she said, eyes gleaming. "It's unbelievable." As she spoke, Michael's stomach twisted. Unbelievable or not, it had happened. But what would this transformation mean for him? The naivete of simply saving a life was no longer enough. He needed to grasp this moment with both hands. Decisions bubbled furiously to the surface of his mind. Speaking up or remaining silent? Would he share the details? After all, he was the one who had been there when it mattered. The very act of his intervention had shifted him from invisible to vital. And yet, with every second that ticked away, doubt rose like a tide, lapping at the edges of his confidence. Michael. Karen's voice was sharp, cutting through his introspection. Can you come over here? His heart raced as he approached. This was the testing ground. The moment he'd been unconsciously prepping for. I need you to handle the notes for our next team meeting. Be sure to mention Ashford's recovery, it'll be good for morale. And maybe we could secure an article about this for the firm's newsletter? The weight of her expectations bore down on him. This was his chance, wasn't it? To remind them, subtly yet firmly, of his presence and capability. The next words, however, felt like glass caught in his throat. How could he intertwine his name into the narrative without appearing opportunistic? Sure, he replied, forcing a breath past the tension. I'll draft something that reflects the incident accurately. Good. If you could angle it to highlight our commitment to community support, that would be ideal, she added, her gaze flashing with authority. With a stiff nod, he returned to his desk, his insides churning with unrest. The opportunity was pulling at him. Could he weave himself into this mainstream narrative, or would he be shooting for a facade of heroism that others would surely eclipse? He began typing furiously, musing on how he would structure the piece. Something profound. Something revealing. Could he showcase his own growth through the lens of Ashford's crisis? Each word he wrote flourished with the pulse of ambition. Yet, lurking within, a persistent voice questioned if he was merely spinning a web of artifice wrapped around the crux of his real wants: the respect of his peers, the chance to rise. Suddenly, the office door opened, and a rush of energy flowed in. The head partner, Mr. Jenkins, appeared, his face clouded with concern. The air became charged with possibility as Michael's pulse quickened anew. Michael, Jenkins called, locking eyes with him, I've heard some remarkable things about you today. The words hung in the air, thick with promise and pressure alike. The moment of reckoning was upon him, where integrity and ambition would need to intersect. What could Michael say that would honor both Ashford and his own aspirations? As the tension thickened, a choice loomed before him, pulsating with urgency. Would he seize the moment to define himself beyond what they saw, or would he falter under the weight of others' expectations? The junction of self-discovery and professional consequence had arrived. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he be swept away? Michael's heart pounded as he stood before Mr. Jenkins, a figure of authority whose opinion could shape the trajectory of his career. The moment felt surreal, as if he were watching a scene from a film rather than living it. What was it about this day that had ignited such fervent change in the office dynamic? Had he really gone from being a shadow to a highlight on the firm's stage? Remarkable things, you say? He ventured, forcing the words out, keenly aware that a slip of confidence could undermine everything he had built in these past fleeting minutes. Yes, Jenkins replied, his tone intense yet measured. I understand you played a key role in Ashford's rescue. We should discuss how that reflects on our image and the values we uphold as a firm. Every fiber of Michael's being wanted to exclaim, to draw attention to his own involvement, but tugging at his conscience was the concern that his desire to elevate himself could overshadow the genuine heroism of the moment. I was just doing what anyone would do, he said, the words tasting bitter. Not just anyone. You acted decisively when it mattered. Jenkins' gaze was piercing. A lot of people wouldn't have had the courage to step forward. This could change things for you, Michael. Change. The word loomed large, a double-edged sword. On one side, the prospect of a promotion, recognition, respect. On the other, the suffocating pressure to sustain that image and live up to expectations. What if people began to look at him as more than just a paralegal? What if he faltered? Let us bring your experience into our meeting, Jenkins continued, the air thick with impending decisions. Perhaps you could lead a segment on crisis management. Your insights could be a strong testament to our commitment to professionalism. Led? Michael was grappling with insecurities. Leading meant responsibility, visibility, and potential judgment. He was acutely aware that this would strip him bare of any anonymity he'd clung to for years, replacing it with the probing eyes of every colleague he had once blended in among. "I could help draft the notes for that," he offered instead, attempting to recalibrate. The temptation to retreat was close, but simultaneously, something deeper within him flickered an urge to confront the challenge despite the chill of trepidation that gripped him. Jenkins regarded him carefully before nodding in agreement. "You certainly should, but remember," he added, leaning in as if sharing a secret, "the success of this firm hinges on how we project our strengths. You are one of those strengths now. Don't underestimate the impact of your voice." As Jenkins stepped away, Meredith from accounting, a woman he had barely spoken to before, subtly approached his desk. "I just wanted to say, that was amazing, what you did. I think everyone has noticed the shift." Her words resonated. Michael felt the swell of hope beneath the cautions of doubt that clouded his mind. Could he embrace this newfound identity? Would he allow himself to be seen for more than the background figure he had always settled for? Yet as he typed up the draft for the meeting, connecting the dots between Ashford's incident and their firm's image, an underlying tension simmered within him. Did he even know how to command a room, how to embrace this new role? Would speaking up merely sound hollow, or would he find meaning in articulating his experience? A wave of unease washed over him as he considered the implications. Perhaps this was the real test, an opportunity not just for career advancement but for personal evolution. Time passed, and he found himself glancing at the clock, an enemy ticking away minutes filled with anxious possibility. Would presenting at the meeting empower him, or shatter the illusion he was desperately trying to maintain? The door swung open as the meeting commenced. Colleagues took their seats, murmurs echoing through the room as attention turned toward him. The path forward was clear, yet clouded by his insecurities. It was now or never, and the sensation of stepping into the spotlight was electric. Would he rise to the challenge, or would the weight of his own reluctance drag him down? As Michael took a breath and drew closer to the front, he realized that just beyond the threshold of this moment lay the possibility of discovery, not just of the heroism others admired but a truer version of himself waiting to emerge. The question loomed large in his mind: could he let go of the shadows and step into the light? As his heart raced, he prepared to find out. The room fell silent as Michael approached the front. Colleagues lined the table, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and curiosity. This was the moment he had dreaded and yearned for, wrapped in an almost suffocating aura of significance. He clutched the notes, their edges crisp against his palms, grounding him in the reality of the task at hand. "Good morning, everyone," he began, consciously adopting a steadier tone than he felt. The immediacy of his responsibility began to settle over him like a heavy blanket. Was this how leaders felt, exposed and electrified at once? As he glanced at Jenkins, nodding with approval from the edge of the table, a flicker of courage ignited within him. He started with a recounting of the Ashford incident, carefully articulating each phase with the weight it deserved while allowing his own voice to emerge. It was an emotional balance, sharing the gravity of the ordeal without allowing it to swallow him whole. "I realized that in moments of crisis," he continued, "the choices we make can redefine not only our immediate objectives but also how we are perceived as professionals. It's not just about saving a client, it's about embodying our firm's values in our decision-making." He could see heads nodding, perhaps offering him the validation he sought. But beneath that surface approval was a cauldron of self-doubt simmering away. What if they saw through his facade? What if his insights weren't profound enough, lacking the experience and wisdom traditionally deemed necessary for leadership? Michael pushed those intruding thoughts aside and pointedly reminded himself, "This is what you wanted. You chose to step into the light, now embrace it." As he transitioned into discussing crisis management strategies, he could feel the adrenaline coursing through him, propelling his words with unexpected clarity. He described how preparation, teamwork, and transparent communication could forge resilience, turning adversity into an opportunity for growth. Each word felt like a small discovery, revealing the depth of his understanding as he wove his experiences with theoretical principles. In that space, Michael felt a shift. The penetrating gaze of colleagues morphed from judgment into curiosity and respect. Perhaps this was the liberation he had craved, the transformation from paralegal to burgeoning leader. The shadows no longer seemed too dark to traverse, however, as he concluded his segment and invited questions, apprehension slinked back in. Could he handle scrutiny? The first raised hand belonged to James, a senior partner known for his sharp critiques. "Michael," he began, "how do you anticipate addressing potential backlash after a situation like Ashford's? What if clients feel vulnerable or hesitant to approach our firm in fear of similar crises?" The question was batting practice for any rookie. It was a challenge, an opportunity uncovered, and yet Michael felt momentarily paralyzed. Questions whirled in his mind. Was he truly ready for this? Would he falter under pressure? It seemed that the thin line between confidence and imposter syndrome had, once again, blurred before him. Gathering himself, he pulled from the depths of his preparation, responding with poise. "Every crisis presents a unique opportunity for honest dialogue," he articulated, pushing past the clamor of doubt. "We must communicate our commitment to problem-solving and transparency, ensuring our clients know we are steadfast partners in any situation." Michael's rebuttal earned murmurs of approval and deep nods, but the initial inkling of doubt returned, suggesting the fragility of his newfound footing. He was still reliant on the temporary armor of affirmation. After the meeting adjourned, the adrenaline began to wane, replaced by exhaustion laced with exhilaration. His colleagues exchanged opinions as they departed, the hum of conversation swirling around him like the tailwinds of a storm. He remained at the forefront, feeling both triumphant yet conflicted. As Michael left the conference room, Meredith approached him again, her smile bright and genuine. "You really held your own, Michael. I think this is just the beginning for you." Her words hung in the air, buoying him with anticipation. But even as praise settled comfortably over him, the gnawing voice of doubt whispered relentlessly, who would he become next? Could he keep rising, or would he inevitably fall back into the shadows he had just begun to escape? With each step towards his desk, he pondered the decisions that lay ahead. What did it mean to truly lead? What other challenges awaited him, hidden just beyond the curve of his evolving identity? And as he faced his computer screen, another question loomed larger than ever. Would he be willing to confront the lurking fears that accompanied his ascent, or would those very fears become the chains that held him back? The hazy glow of the computer screen flickered to life, illuminating the notes strewn across his desk like scattered thoughts he couldn't quite organize. As Michael settled into his chair, he felt the weight of expectation tighten around him. The post-meeting adrenaline shifted, replaced by the lingering question of how to sustain this newfound momentum in an environment rife with scrutiny. He began typing out the key points from his presentation. The act felt grounding, a way to capture the revelations that had sparked during his talk. With each keystroke, he crafted a narrative shaped by lessons learned and experiences lived, a version of himself that one day, he hoped, might feel like a leader in every fiber of his being, not just in fleeting moments. Yet, the lingering voice persisted, cascading through his thoughts like an unyielding wave. Was he really equipped for what lay ahead? What if the next challenge demanded more than he was ready to give? This was a world where seconds of hesitation could lead to missed opportunities, a landscape where decisive action reigned supreme. He had skated by so far, feigning confidence while hiding beneath layers of imposter syndrome. As that thought spiraled, Meredith's acknowledgement echoed in his mind, a tantalizing thread of hope. What if he didn't need to obscure his vulnerability? What if the unfolding challenges could serve as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks? Maybe he could transform the very fears that threatened to anchor him into pathways for growth. It was a potent revelation, one that demanded action. Feeling a spark of determination surge through him, Michael springboarded into planning for an upcoming networking event. He ushered forth the vision of himself engaging with industry leaders, not as a paralegal hiding in the shadows but as a formidable voice advocating for transformation. He would confront his fear of inadequacy head-on, unearthing the unique capacity that lay dormant within him. He opened a new document titled Goals for Networking Event. As the outline took shape, he revolved around the key areas he wanted to focus on: approaching influential figures, sharing his insights gathered from the Ashford incident, and fostering authentic connections. Each bullet point was both a challenge and a reminder of his potential. Suddenly, an email pinged in his inbox, disrupting the flurry of his developing ideas. It was from James, the senior partner who had scrutinized his earlier presentation. Michael braced himself, the anticipation sending an electric tingle through his fingertips. James's feedback could easily derail his ambitions or propel him further, and the gravity of that potential lingered. Opening the email, he found a concise message that caught him off guard. Michael, your presentation today was commendable. Let us discuss your thoughts on strategic client management. I believe you have valuable insights that could influence our approach. Coffee tomorrow? Michael's heart raced. This was an unexpected opportunity, a chance to engage with someone who held influence and whose respect could bolster his credibility. The very prospect of such a meeting ignited a smoldering fire in him, a flicker of hope that maybe his fears didn't need to dictate the trajectory of his career after all. But therein lay the dilemma. The stakes were high. Was he prepared to speak openly with James? Would he navigate the conversation with confidence or stumble through uncertainty? The thought of scrutiny sent a shiver down his spine. As he closed the email window, he stared at his own reflection in the darkened screen, witnessing a kaleidoscope of resolve and fear at war within him. The moment was pivotal, a precipice demanding that even the slightest step forward could shift him towards either growth or retreat. With the clock ticking down to the meeting, he felt the pressure intensify. Would he rise to the occasion and articulate his vision effectively, or would he again shrink from the eyes of strong authority? The answers danced just out of reach. Michael took a deep breath, determined. No longer would he dwell on what he might lack. Tomorrow marked a new opportunity to not only present his ideas but to confront the inner adversary that had long been his silent foe. And as he prepared, he couldn't help but wonder, what would he uncover about himself in the process? The stakes were rising, and with them, the undeniable truth. He was entering a territory where only one thing was certain: the time had come to face the deepest fears that tethered him. The morning sun streamed through the office windows, casting long shadows across Michael's desk as he paced the floor. Anxiety coiled inside him, a serpentine reminder of the meeting that loomed closer with each passing second. The caffeine from his hurriedly consumed coffee had invigorated him physically, but internally he grappled with a tumultuous blend of anticipation and dread. He sat down, his hands trembling slightly as he opened his notepad. Scribbled across the pages were ideas and thoughts related to the upcoming coffee meeting with James. What if he navigated the conversation poorly? What if he failed to communicate his insights clearly, squandering this rare chance? These questions tumbled through his mind like stones plunging into a void, each one weighing heavier than the last, yet somewhere in that chaotic tapestry of thoughts, he made a deliberate choice to flip the narrative. Instead of viewing the meeting as a high-stakes audition, he decided to see it as a forum for sharing ideas that could impact their workplace. The clarity sparked a change in his tone. He was no longer just seeking approval, he was asserting his right to contribute meaningfully. In a moment of reflection, Michael reminded himself of the insights he gathered during the Ashford incident. He turned a potentially disastrous situation into a learning opportunity for the entire team. Throughout that period, he had learned to embrace uncertainty, pivoting when faced with adverse challenges. If he could harness that spirit again, he could resonate with James, sharing not only his insights but also the lessons steeped within them. With renewed resolve, he drafted a list of key talking points for their discussion, emphasizing innovative strategies for client management, adaptive communication methods, and the significance of empathy in client relations. As he reviewed the list, he felt an exhilarating rush of a new kind of power surging through him, one born from self-awareness and genuine intent. The clock struck 9, and without further delay, Michael made his way to the cafe where he would meet James. The brisk autumn air invigorated him, heightening his senses as he stepped into the familiar bustling atmosphere. Designing encounters with influential figures as a strategic maneuver was not just an abstract exercise anymore, it had become a tangible adventure. As he settled into a cozy booth, glancing at the rush of patrons, a familiar face appeared. James walked in, scanning the surroundings until his eyes finally met Michael's. There was an innate authority in James's demeanor that typically intimidated Michael, but today he felt a newfound steadiness within himself. "Michael," James greeted, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. "Thanks for meeting me. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts." Michael felt a rush of adrenaline but steadied himself, adopting an open posture as they made small talk before diving in. Each moment began to feel less like an interview and more like an exchange of ideas between collaborators, a partnership in pursuit of excellence. As their conversation flowed, Michael shared his observations on client management and instinctively began articulating strategies that could elevate their practice. He sensed that James was genuinely engaged, nodding along as Michael wove his narratives of past experiences into persuasive arguments, yet, as the conversation shifted to new proposals, a flicker of doubt resurfaced. What if he misjudged the tone? What if he ventured into territory that seemed too ambitious? As he hesitated, he felt the crux of his fears rising once again. But now, equipped with the knowledge of his potential and a vision of the leader he could become, he pushed through the unease. Suddenly, James posed a question that sent a jolt of realization through Michael. "What do you believe is the most important quality for client relations?" Caught off guard but buoyed by the challenge, Michael knew this was his moment to reclaim his voice. How he responded could be pivotal not only for his relationship with James but for his journey forward. "Empathy," he answered, his voice steady. "Understanding clients isn't just about the transactions, it's about connection. By fostering a genuine relationship, we don't just serve them, we build trust." As he spoke, Michael felt the barriers of intimidation crumble. This conversation marked a shift within him, a tangible step towards the leader he aspired to be. In the magnetic energy that arose between them, he sensed something profound taking root, in uncharted territory where his fears no longer dictated his choices but propelled him forward. The moment crystallized, and as James leaned in, Michael realized he was on the precipice of not just a conversation, but of transformation. What lay ahead, however, remained unsure. Would his words resonate, or would they fade in the cacophony of uncertainty? As they delved deeper into a dialogue rich with potential, an unexpected thought flickered in Michael's mind. Perhaps this was the beginning of something greater. Something that represented not only a career advancement but a newfound identity defined by courage. With the stakes rising, Michael felt excitement swirl in tandem with apprehension. Would this conversation mark a decisive moment for his career or merely a stepping stone to something else? The answer remained unclear, a tantalizing mystery that dared him to embrace the unfolding path ahead. As their conversation progressed, the initial excitement began to intensify within Michael. He realized James was not just listening, he was evaluating. Every word Michael shared was a test of his tenacity and insight. The stakes were higher than he had anticipated, and with each exchange, he felt both exhilarated and terrified. Then James pivoted the conversation toward a recent conflict with a client, a situation that had escalated quickly and required immediate attention. "We can't afford to let our clients feel unheard or undervalued. It could cost us everything," James remarked, his tone taut with urgency. Michael's heartbeat quickened as he studied James's expression, noting the weight behind his words. This was not just a casual discussion, this was a call to arms. The Ashford incident loomed in Michael's mind, serving as a reminder of what had worked before. He leaned forward, his voice steady. "The key is to reframe our approach from a transactional one to a relational one. If we can emphasize how much we value feedback and open communication, then even when we stumble, we can mend our reputation with sincerity." James's brow furrowed, the tension in the air palpable. "It's not just about words," he interjected. "It's about action. We need proof that we're capable of change. Clients need to see momentum." As Michael considered the implications, a realization struck him. He hadn't merely come to this meeting to provide advice, he was standing at a crossroads where he could become an agent of transformation. This was an opportunity for him to propose a new initiative to foster client relationships, a novel creative vision that would require both boldness and support. What if we initiated a feedback loop? He suggested, excited by the thought. Monthly check-ins with a few select clients, pairing them with team members dedicated solely to understanding their evolving needs. We can create tailored solutions that demonstrate we're not just reactive, but proactive. James's demeanor shifted slightly, the corners of his mouth twitching into an appreciative smirk. Now that's a pitch I can get behind. This is the innovation we need. The exhilaration of being acknowledged sparked an idea. What if the very essence of his approach, this focus on empathy, could be the driving force behind a departmental overhaul? Could he create an environment where other employees felt empowered, too? He felt a growing desire to take the next step in his career, to not just contribute but to lead a transformation that aligned with his core values. There was a possibility blossoming within him. It felt as though he could harness the momentum of this conversation to not just elevate his standing with James, but to ripple across the workplace. But with this ambition came a gnawing fear. Taking the leap would require more than just a good concept. Would his colleagues embrace his vision, or would they see it as an encroachment? Would they support him in this endeavor, or would it be met with resistance? As the discussion edged toward a close, Michael's mind buzzed with possibilities and questions. The meeting had shifted from an initial feeling of dread to a fervent desire for change, not just for himself, but for the entire team. It illuminated a path he had not previously considered. "What's your next move?" James asked, his tone infused with curiosity. Michael paused, weighing his options. This was a pivotal moment that could define his career trajectory. Take the leap? Embrace this newfound identity as a leader willing to put forth a bold vision for the team? Michael smiled, feeling a resolve solidify within him. "I'm going to draft a proposal. I want to demonstrate the potential of transforming how we connect with our clients. Empathy can be our strongest asset." As he exchanged a determined glance with James, he knew that whatever lay ahead demanded fearless commitment. The current of change surged around him, and Michael was ready to dive in, but as he stood to leave, an unsettling thought loomed. If he took this leap, would he end up alienating those he most needed by his side? Would he truly be prepared to weather the storm of innovation in a reluctant environment? With those questions hanging in the air, Michael stepped into the brisk autumn breeze, the weight of uncertainty thrumming within him. The door was open, but the path ahead was still shrouded in mystery. What radical changes awaited as he committed to this audacious journey, and what challenges would he have to face to bring his vision to life? The morning sun poured through the windows as Michael settled at his desk, the crisp pages of his notepad inviting focus. The hum of the office buzzed around him, yet it created a tunnel that isolated him from the distractions. Today would be the day he began drafting that proposal. As he stared at the blank paper, a wave of self-doubt washed over him. What if his colleagues dismissed his ideas? What if they laughed at him for even suggesting a shift in strategy? The Ashford incident loomed in his mind, a specter of failure that threatened to cripple his resolve. He snapped the notebook closed, the sound cutting through the quiet. The doubts swirled like a tempest, yet a flicker of determination persisted. He inhaled deeply, summoning the memory of James's encouraging words. This was his chance to champion change, not just for himself, but for a struggling team in desperate need of fresh direction. In the corners of his mind, images of his colleagues emerged, their apprehensive expressions haunting him. It dawned on him that for every apprehension, there was also a glimmer of hope. He envisioned Rita, whose expertise in client relations had long been undervalued. Perhaps she would share his vision. Equipped with a clearer purpose, he grabbed another sheet of paper and began to outline his proposal. He envisioned a series of workshops aimed at redefining their approach to client engagement. The workshops would involve role-playing, allowing team members to stand in their clients' shoes, simulating interaction scenarios that could either strengthen or undermine relationships. Reflecting on the challenges that lay ahead, Michael could feel himself wading into deeper waters. Would these workshops invigorate his colleagues or instill a sense of dread about an ever-increasing workload? He froze, the pen hovering over the paper, caught in contemplation, but then, a thought anchored him. Empowerment started at the individual level, and if he could just get a few people on board, the ripple effect might overcome the resistance he feared. He continued, imagining the momentum building as each person began to embrace their role in reimagining client relations. Emotional turmoil was tempered by the prospect of unity. He realized that, rather than imposing change, he needed to foster collaboration. This would not just be his vision, it would be theirs, a collective evolution born from shared experiences. The draft began to take shape, the lines of text growing more robust with each idea he poured onto the page. He included sections on potential success metrics, highlighting how improved client interactions could translate into tangible corporate benefits. After several hours, he leaned back, scanning what he had written. A sense of pride washed over him. No longer was he merely a cog in the machine, he was a catalyst for transformation, a leader willing to take a risk for the greater good. Yet, as the sun began to dip beyond the horizon, a creeping anxiety returned. The proposal needed a readiness to confront inevitable pushback. Armed with his ideas, would he have the courage to present them? What seasoned colleagues would challenge him, and how would he respond? Michael took a deep breath, reminding himself that this was the path he had chosen. The stakes were high, but so were the potential rewards. With a newfound determination, he packed away his notes, his mind racing with strategies on how to present his vision compellingly. Michael stepped out into the evening air, his heart racing with the thrill of what lay ahead. Would the bold leap he was about to take elevate him as a respected leader, or would it become a lesson in humility and resilience? As he walked, he felt the thrill of possibility surging within him, guiding his thoughts toward the reactions of his colleagues. Would they stand beside him in this ambitious endeavor, or would their skepticism threaten to quench his zeal before it even ignited? Amidst those swirling thoughts, a determination crystallized: he would not embark on this journey alone. This call for change would lead him to the inevitable confrontation that awaited, the real test of his commitment to leadership. Tomorrow would reveal what truly lay ahead. The sun rose higher, casting a golden light over the city as Michael prepared himself for what was about to be a pivotal day. Today, he would present the proposal he had poured his heart into, a proposed transformation of client relations at the firm. Standing before the mirror, he straightened his suit jacket and took a deliberate breath, reminding himself of Ashford's grateful gaze and James' encouraging words. This was his moment to step into the role he had long envisioned. As he entered the conference room, the air was charged with anticipation. Colleagues were seated, engaged in hushed conversations, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Michael's confidence wavered but steadied as he recalled the dedication he had infused into writing his proposal. It wasn't just a document, it represented his transformation and a vision for a renewed sense of purpose within the firm. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice steady. "Today, I want to talk about an opportunity for us to redefine how we connect with our clients and ensure we not only meet but anticipate their needs." He launched into his presentation, articulating each point clearly, detailing innovative strategies and emphasizing the value of empathy. As he spoke, his initial fears faded in the energy of the moment. He could see heads nodding in approval, colleagues leaning forward, engaged. Michael shared stories from Ashford's crisis, weaving them into his narrative. "In moments of urgency, our true values emerge. Our clients need to know that we're their allies, standing firmly beside them," he asserted, inviting his audience into his vision. When he finished, a buzz filled the room, accompanied by a series of inquiries and thoughts. To his surprise, instead of facing skepticism, he was met with curiosity, genuine interest. Rita, whose insights he had admired, stood first. "Michael, I love this concept. The empathy workshops could truly shift our culture. I'd love to help facilitate them." Encouragement swept through him, and he realized the time for hesitation had passed. He engaged in discussions with others, their ideas building upon his foundation, transforming individual ambition into a collective commitment. The interaction crystallized his leadership capabilities in a way he had never expected. As the meeting wrapped up, James turned to him, pride evident in his demeanor. "I'm impressed, Michael. You've sparked a necessary dialogue here. Let us set a timeline for implementing your initiatives and see how quickly we can materialize these transformations." In that moment, the weight of his previous doubts began to lift. Michael felt seen not just as a paralegal clinging to a dream but as a key player in the firm's future. His heart swelled with a sense of belonging and purpose as conversations bubbled around him, filled with anticipation for what they could achieve together. Days quickly turned into weeks, and the seeds of his proposal began blooming into action. The empathy workshops were a resounding success, fostering connection and recognition among colleagues. Michael embraced his new role not as a burden but as an opportunity to inspire others. He organized team-building sessions and client feedback loops, energizing them to innovate further. One afternoon, as they celebrated the success of their newfound initiatives, evidence of improved client satisfaction and retention, Michael paced across the office, reveling in a profound sense of accomplishment. This was no longer just a dream, but a reality he had co-penned with his team. He caught a glimpse of himself in a reflective window. This was the confident leader he had aspired to be. Recognition poured in from leadership, clients, and, most importantly, his peers. No longer hovering in the shadows, Michael received invitations to strategic meetings and discussions, his input valued and initiated. Through the journey, he developed a reputation for both integrity and insight, embodying the beliefs that had fueled his personal journey. He transformed from the paralegal who had once felt invisible to a respected advocate for change, a true professional marked by resolve and accomplishment. Michael squared his shoulders, soaking in the success and evolution he had achieved. He understood that the path was continuous, presenting a landscape filled with further challenges and victories. The fear of inadequacy had not vanished but rather changed form. It now served as a driving force for growth, propelling him to take risks and embrace every opportunity. In that moment of clarity, he made a silent vow. He would not forget his roots or those who helped him rise. Exiting the office, he felt a newfound confidence buoyed by a simple yet powerful maxim: success is not solely individual, it's a shared journey that begins with a single, courageous step. As Michael prepared to share his story further with emerging professionals, he understood that this was just the beginning of an inspiring narrative, one where he would always champion the underdog, foster connection, and embody growth. And as the sun dipped below the city skyline, Michael stepped into the vibrant pulse of urban life, ready for whatever came next. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. Comment your reactions and theories about this inspiring conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. This is the moment to show your support and champion transformative narrative. Don't wait even one more second.